back at it again, baby, and we got Dave Rubin. Let's dive in.
Focus of the conversation, politically and culturally, is still on Twitter. Twitter is still the place for that, so that people on, say, YouTube or Rumble and other things, or people that are reporters or whatever you want.
What's Rumble? Never heard of it. Let me know if you have any idea what that is.
Want to call them journalists at CNN or at the New York Times, they're still reporting on what's going on Twitter. So that's why I think this is important. So if you're watching this and going, well, I'm not on Twitter, I don't really care about Twitter, it's like that still is ground zero for the conversation. So the Washington Post had an interesting take on this. Here's a beautiful headline from the Washington Post. Elon Musk's Twitter investment could be bad news for free speech. It's literally the reverse of the truth.
Yeah, it's crazy how some stories get spun and put out into public consumption. I think news organizations need to be held more accountable on these types of situations. Elon Musk has emphatically talked about free speech and how he doesn't think Twitter is adhering to free speech as much as he would like. So him purchasing a portion of Twitter is not a threat to free speech. It's good for free speech. To all the SJWs, social justice warriors, for those of you that don't know what that stands for, I'm sure it's terrifying. People can get on Twitter and actually speak their minds without worrying about being canceled or deplatformed, and
which is simply perfect for the Washington Post. Elon made a point over the course of the last few weeks of saying, I want to defend free speech. I don't like the way Twitter is doing it. I am here now putting my money where my mouth is to ensure that they will be more respectful of free speech principles. But of course, Washington Post's editorial about that was that it's going to somehow harm free speech. But Elon,
I would love to see their explanation as far as how that would harm free speech. Like, how did they spin that one? If anybody's read that article, please let me know how they managed to spin that as bad for free speech.
Despite the Washington Post owned by Jeff Bezos, by the way, Amazon's Jeff Bezos. The Washington Post, here's some of the things that are happening right now going on Twitter related to free speech. Well, Elon Musk, do you want an edit button? This is something people have talked about for a long time because, occasionally you actually mistype something, or I find iPhone autocorrect is actually horrible and doesn't warn me about.
And it was funny. I just noticed what he did there. Do you want an edit button? And if you see where it says yes, see how he spelled it wrong? I'm sure he did that on purpose. Like, oh man, I spelled yes wrong, but I already posted it, so I can't really go back and edit it. Which is dumb. I don't know why Twitter doesn't have an edit button. Like, Twitter's been around for years. You can't give us an edit button? Are you kidding me? Sheesh Louise.
Mistype something, or I find iPhone autocorrect is actually horrible and doesn't warn me about words that are mistyped and sometimes confuses other words and puts spaces between things and all sorts of crazy stuff. And you realize it literally 1 second later. Now, the issue is, if you were to add an edit button, do they have to acknowledge that there was an edit? What if it's already got 1,000 retweets? There's all sorts of stuff. But this is something that people have been clamoring about literally for 10 years. And then finally, 1 day later, after Elon Musk says that, Twitter communications. Now that everyone's asking, yes, we've been working on an edit feature since last year. No, we didn't get the idea from a poll. We're kicking off testing within the Twitter Blue Labs in the coming months to learn what works, what doesn't, and what's possible. Now, look,
a simple fix for that situation would be add a little stamp or a little mark or something that just says edited. Because what you don't want, like he said, is somebody tweets something, that you agree with or whatever. It could be something totally innocent and you like it, but then later on they edit the tweet to say something wild. But maybe I'm wrong. Y'all let me know what you think the solution to that would be.
Again, without saying that Twitter is the most important thing in the world here, whether Twitter has an edit button or not is sort of secondary. Now we'll get to the meat of this, because the meat of this is about free speech and our ability to communicate with each other. Not the government saying you can communicate with each other, but private citizens' ability to communicate with each other in the modern world. And Elon Musk is clearly trying to defend that, unless I am being completely duped right now, and everybody else is too. That seems to be what's going on here. So we've got some info from the Daily Wire. Elon Musk contacted the Babylon Bee before buying a substantial share of Twitter, according to the Christian Satire's chief executive. Musk is a fan of the Babylon Bee, which is currently suspended from Twitter for an article that jokingly named Health and Human Services Assistant Secretary Rachel Levine as Man of the Year, and was hosted on the site's podcast at the end of last year. According to Babylon Bee CEO Seth Dillon, the world's richest man consulted with the Babylon Bee before purchasing a 9.2% stake in Twitter. Musk reached out to us before he polled his followers about Twitter's commitment to free speech. Dillon reported he wanted to confirm that we had in fact been suspended. He even mused on a call that he might need to buy Twitter. Now he's the largest shareholder and has a seat on the board. Twitter has thus far refused to revoke its decision to lock the Babylon Bee's account. According to Dillon, the company wrote, "Our support team has determined that a violation did take place and therefore we will not overturn the decision." Now, there's a couple interesting things here. So the Babylon Bee is suspended for quite literally making a joke. Quite literally making a joke. Now, we know that the Ayatollah is on Twitter. We know that Hamas is on Twitter. We know that terror organizations like Antifa are on Twitter, or Black Lives Matter is on Twitter. And there's all sorts of bad people that say horrible things on Twitter. In my estimation, as long as you're not breaking the laws of the United States, you should be allowed to be on Twitter and people can block you or mute you or whatever it might be. But the Babylon Bee is suspended because of a joke. And then, even though still very few people are talking about this, it's important to note that Tucker Carlson, the #1 rated host in the history of cable news, is suspended right now for the exact same thing, for basically saying Rachel Levine is a man, not a woman, a biological man, not a woman. That is a fact. That is an uncomfortable fact, but that is a fact. So Elon Musk is defending the bee. I suspect that the Babylon Bee will be back on there soon, which also leads us perhaps to believe that a certain orange man might be back on there.
A certain orange man? His tan is crazy. But Tucker Carlson is part of the news, so I don't really trust much of anything that he says, to be completely honest. As a matter of fact, I think he's been sued for lying on TV or something, and let me know if that was correct. I want to say he's been sued for lying. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. I don't think he should have been suspended, regardless of whether or not I agree with Tucker Carlson. Anybody really a part of the news. I think a lot of y'all agreed with me on the whole news situation. Do y'all trust Tucker? Let me know in the comment section. Yeah, hopefully Elon Musk can overturn this situation on Twitter where people are being suspended. I don't think people should be muffled in any way, shape, or fashion. The more important thing is teaching people critical thinking skills and not just following the crowd or taking someone's word as the gospel or as 100% truth. I don't take anybody's word as 100% truth, which is why you always hear me say, has anybody fact checked that? Hey, has anybody researched that before? I don't care who it is. Thomas Sowell, Jordan Peterson. I always want to make sure that things are fact checked, because I don't want to be in a situation where I just take someone's word and then eventually they use it against me. Not saying that Jordan Peterson or Thomas Sowell or anybody like that would do that, but when you just take people's word as the gospel, you open yourself to that possibility. That's just my opinion on the whole situation. Y'all can let me know how you feel about it in the comment section below. Like, share, comment, and of course, hit that subscribe button before you go. And go and join the new Discord server where we have free speech. It's the first link down below. Peace and love. I'm out.